Hi, boys and girls. In this lesson, you will review how to divide a whole number by a unit fraction. This is a skill that we have learned earlier this year, but in this lesson, we'll review how to do it. One thing I want you to think about as we are learning this is why is the quotient or the answer larger than the dividend, that's the number we're actually dividing, when dividing by a unit fraction. So let's read it again now that we know what those vocabulary words mean. Why is the quotient larger than the dividend when dividing by a unit fraction? I want you to think about this, and we'll come back to this question after we do our examples and review of this learning that we've already had. So let's look at this example. Jack's fishbowl holds 5 liters of water. If he used a scoop that holds 1/4 of a liter, how many scoops will he need in order to fill the entire bowl? Well, two things I need to know here. That the fishbowl holds 5 liters of water, and also that he's using a scoop that holds 1/4 of a liter. So I'm going to pull out the two things I know. Let's change my color so we can see it. I know we've got 5 liters of water, and I know that each scoop is 1/4 of that liter. So what am I going to do to 5 and 1/4? Here, I am going to divide. I'm going to erase my L here. I'm going to wind up dividing the 5 liters that I need to fill up the whole bowl, fish bowl, into the 1/4 scoop. So I'm really asking how many 1/4 scoops am I using to get to that whole number of 5. So when I want to show my work for this, I've showed my equation. I'm going to start with 5. So I'm going to draw 5 rectangles. And here, in order to show my division, I actually need to take those 5 holes, which matches what I started with. These 5 rectangles match the whole number of 5. And I'm going to divide or split each one of these holes into 1/4 pieces. So if I were to do that, I'm going to divide each hole into fourths. Now this piece has 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 in that hole. I'm going to continue that for each of the 5 holes that I have. And as I'm doing this, I am modeling what my equation says or my expression says. I have 5 holes, and I'm dividing each one of those holes into 1/4. So here, if I want to know how many scoops will he need in order to fill the entire bowl, I need to count each one of these parts. So let's change our color and let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you should see a pattern that we're going to be counting by 4s. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So each one of those little parts represents his 1/4 scoop that he's going to be dumping in. So the answer to this question is 5 divided by 1/4 will equal 20 scoops. So go back to that question. Why is our quotient, or our answer of 20, larger than the dividend, or 5? The unit fraction is this. Whenever a numerator is 1 in a fraction, it's called a unit fraction. So this is our dividend, this is our divisor, and this is our quotient. So why is our quotient of 20 larger than 5 after we divided. The reason for that is because I took a whole number and I divided it into smaller parts. That means I'm going to wind up to get more than what I started with, because what I started with were whole things, and what I'm ending with are those wholes into smaller parts or fractions. So when I split something into fractions, I wind up getting more of them because I have more parts. Let's keep going. Ella is making dresses for her stuffed animals. She has 3 meters of material. She has 1/6 meters of material to make each dress. How many dresses will she be able to make? So let's pull out the information we know. We know she's got 3 meters, and we know that each dress needs 1/6 of a meter. So here, we're going to pull out our 3, and we're going to pull out our 1/6. And if you think about this, is she going to cut the 1/6 material, or is she going to cut up the 3 meters of material? Since if you could imagine this visual in your head, Ella would probably lay out all of the material she has first, and that's where this 3 comes from, and then she would cut it into the size pieces that she needs. So that's why that one comes second. And since she's cutting up that material into pieces, that's why we're dividing here. So if I were to model my expression, I start with what my expression shows. So if I have 3, I'm going to start with 3 holes. There's 3 holes. Now what I need to do is show 1/6. In order to do that, I need to show 6 parts in this hole, and 6 parts in this hole, and 6 more parts in this hole. So I can split it into thirds and then split each one of those in half to give me 6ths. Okay, so here I've modeled my 3 holes and I've divided them into 1/6 pieces of material. When I count up these pieces, that should answer my question of how many dresses will she be able to make. Hopefully you can get the answer before I model it for you. Let's change the color here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So Ella will be able to make 18 dresses. Awesome. Let's do one more example. Addison has 4 yards of wood to make shelves. If each shelf uses 1/3 of a yard, how many shelves can be made with the 4 yards of wood? So think about this. If we're going to make a shelf, we have to have one large piece of wood, and then Addison is going to cut this into specific parts, or 1/3 yards. So we need to start with, let's use green this time. We need to start with the 4 because that's how much wood there is. And we're going to divide that wood into 1/3 pieces. So I would love it if you could pause the video right here, show this model all by yourself, and then play the video again and see if our answers match. You can do that on paper or a whiteboard or a marker, but I am going to ask you to show your work. I'm out of space. We'll go over here. Okay, so I have my 4 holes. I have to start with 4 holes because that's what my number I have to start with is. And I'm going to divide or cut up each one of the holes into thirds. So, whoops, I'm going to go back to my marker. There we go. So I've modeled thirds in each one of those holes, and now I need to figure out how many shelves can be made with the 4 yards of wood. You can use your multiples here and count. There are 3 pieces here, so there would be 3 shelves. 3 more pieces here would give us 6 shelves. 3 more pieces over here would give us 9 shelves. And 3 more pieces up here will give us 12 shelves. So there's our answer. Our answer is 12 shelves. If you remember that question, why is the quotient larger than the dividend when dividing by a unit fraction? So why is our answer larger than what we actually started with? If I go back to this example, I started with 4, but my answer was 12, and I divided. That's an odd thing. The reason for that is when you take a whole and you split that whole thing into smaller parts, or the fraction of 1/3 in this case, when you split it into smaller parts, you get more of those parts because they are smaller than the actual whole. In this lesson, we reviewed how to divide a whole number by a unit fraction.